Okay, thank you. All right, so this session is on composite. Karen, Liat, Lisa, Avery, and Kalindi. And there's a proposition on the table. If we could take a radiograph, interdisciplinarity, and collaboration, what would the image reveal? Participants here will live act collaboration. Interesting consideration, using a simple arbitrary thesis as a jumping off point. So the thesis is a Flannel pattern containing coding that promotes the American conservative agenda. So somehow the relation between design and okay, so the pieces to this, I'm not going to read through everything. Time to find the program. And we'll start with Ari.
So I have to say that I wasn't very clear about the assignment. So I took it with the humor with which I at least found the thesis and decided I absolutely had to wear a flag. So anyway, I really think about playfulness as very much a part of experimentation anyway. So here we go. So if you know the, oh, do I have a clicker? Okay, so I look at Plaid in the news yesterday, and you find things like Turkey's Prime Minister donned a blue plaid jacket after voting for himself in the country's 2014 presidential election. So this right away makes you just, think with the thesis. And, anyway, there's a Welsh Nationalist Party, and okay, some other things. So, but then what I immediately did was I went to look up the frequency of the usage of the word plaid. And just as I had suspected, there's actually, you can see a global dip in the graph around 1970.
That's hypnotist to code.
Yeah, this is very significant actually, because of the fact that around 1970, the only people I knew who were wearing plaid, aside from a few lumberjacks, were dykes in the tobacco bars and other things who had to match your work boots and everything. And so I think that, I would have to check exactly to see what the numbers are, and I didn't have time to do that. But I think that this speaks against the thesis, actually makes me a little bit suspicious that the only people who were using plaid as a word in 1970 were the dykes. Okay. Anyway. So my piece of the puzzle, just to make things even more painful, was politics, argues Buckminster Fuller, has no place on this spaceship Earth, a utopia that is modeled by a geodesic sphere composed entirely of isosceles triangles, which is quite distinct from Plaid's lattice work. Okay, so that was my cue. And here's what I decided to do with it. So, research questions. Okay. So, is the geometrical pattern that instantiates, is it the geometrical pattern itself that instantiates conservative politics? What is it about the geometry of plaids, in particular the rectilinear patterning, that promotes conservative thinking? Is it the network of superimposed lines of various thicknesses, or rather rectangles of various dimensions, and the crisscrossing of colors therein that provides an opportunity to embed a conservative agenda? In particular, does the conservative agenda lie in the intersections of the patterning and a conservative appropriation, indeed usurpation, of intersectionality, wherein there is the reinforcement of a singular color that forecloses any radical analysis? Let's see. Is it not the eye's fascination with the overall crisscross patterning a means of dissimulating the workings of power that run through the warp and woof of the fabric of the political.
I think if this is tweeted out, we'll be on Fox News today.
Yeah, that won't be the first time. Okay. Okay, so what if instead of a rectilinear patterning, we made a plaid using isosceles triangles, much like Mr. Fuller's geodesic domes, a kind of tessellation using triangles. In other words, then if it is the right angle, see, big question, we have to get rid of all the right angles. Is there a patterning that would incorporate or code a left-wing agenda? I thought this was a very important question. What would the patterning look like? Would one need a non-Euclidean geometry? Something not only outside the box, but literally off the page. A pattern that would make patterning and the flatness of the space itself evident. Yeah, so, okay, so, and here's some more playful stuff about some data acquisition we could do, and some design approaches like build a time machine and go ask 70s lesbians if they would wear isosceles. Build a Plaid geodesic dome, placing Plaid in a new light by setting it out in different directions. And see what they have. Make a holographic image of Plaid to work with networking patterns differently in 3D, so you can embody Plaid. Or knit hyperbolic planes, which are non-Euclidean geometries, like the knitted coral reefs that Margaret and her sister do, but this time using Plaid, and see if it has the same effect. Okay, so anyway, so things like that. So then, given my disciplinary inclinations, I remembered right away about Fullerians. I don't know if you know about Fullerians, but they're buckyballs. They're actually are a molecule. I'm not making this part up. This is, it seems like this is the part that's really the fantasy, I know. They're carbon-60 molecules, okay, and they're in the form of the geodesic domes, so they're called buckyballs. And people have actually done the wave-particle duality experiment using buckyballs, which are pretty big molecules. And indeed, and there's the reference at the bottom, that's a real-life reference, wave-particle duality of C16, you can hear them talking about buckyballs and Fullerians. And anyway, the answer is that they do exhibit quantum mechanical behavior. So this takes us in a whole other direction of research. Okay. Missing part of this. Oh, so I just wanted to say, this brings up the question, things like, if buckyballs make diffraction patterns, is there something in the quantum nature of geometry such that the embedding of the right-wing agenda is at the nanoscale?
Yeah.
So, maybe they've been that devious. Or it could be a natural occurrence of nanoparticles doing their own thing like the stained glass windows. Or what is the quantum behavior of plaids? I don't know if anybody's ever asked that question. Get out your grants.
I think the NSF has a call out.
So can Plaid be understood quantum mechanically? Okay, I think that's a very deep question. Okay. So, so what I was, so this is just a slide or two about something a little bit serious. Like, suppose that this were the proposition, or, because we would want to just assume that geometrical shapes are not political. How might we go about investigating that? And so what I'm drawing on here is a method that I have my students work with, and that we also work with in the Science and Justice Research Center graduate training program, which is it's not only across different disciplines, but it's across different divisions of the university. So engineering, arts, natural sciences, humanities, social sciences. And one of the things that we always, that we do is we have people bring in objects the first day. You know, bring in something you can hold in your hand that is your research object. And then we start looking at it. I'm starting to look with my own research at this point, but you know, since I didn't exactly do Plaid, I am drawing on a judgment realism here in terms of shifting it away from the referent or the object of analysis. It's not an object in and of itself, but a phenomenon which is non-separable from the apparatuses of investigation. And so we have these multi-interdisciplinary teams, and what we would do together is produce the sketches of what I call genealogical maps. And I don't have one for Plaid, but I do have one for quantum physics, which is in my book, but it's a little bit hard to read. But what you do is you think about all the different apparatuses that produce quantum physics. And this diagram is supposed to invoke the fact that there's a very interesting topology of the way in which they're connected. These different nodes are connected with one another. In time as well as in space. We have things like not only questions of uncertainty and wave particle duality, but Shockley's not only development of the transistor, but his racism and genomics and elementary and computers and quantum computing and the atom bomb and everything else that's in here. And then the question usually is take a couple of these apparatuses and show how they contribute in detail to the production of the phenomenon. But if we had a big collaborative group, what we would realize is that each of these nodes, each of these apparatuses is their own phenomenon. And that they don't necessarily fit within this same genealogical map. They have their own genealogical map. And so you could do this analysis then of Star Wars, the Reagan project, not the TV show. The Strategic Defense Initiative or something. You do the whole genealogy, and then we could fit it back in here and see what we're talking about. And so this is the kind of way in which we've done some of these different projects together, and not at the kind of scale that would really give us a good sense of being able to address a complex thesis, like whether there is a right-wing agenda in Plaid. Yeah. So anyway, I'll just stop there.
The first thing, oh no, did you want to do? The first thing I thought of was fabric rendering and animation. And the reason why I bring this up is just, not to be so serious because that was great, but I went to a workshop I used to work in the Art and Tech Center in San Francisco, and there was an animator at Pixar that was leading like this 2-hour workshop. And the whole 2 hours was just on fabric rendering. And I sat there and I thought to myself, this is the most, like, I literally, my eyes went back to my head because it was so just to the minuscule detail. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is, even though it's digital, even in the way that the person was presenting the content, it was so dependent on this constellation of objects that made that thing possible. So if you didn't have the updated software, if you didn't have a specific laptop. So when you were talking, even in jest, there's something that I drew back to when I was thinking about what you were saying, and it led me to go back to this kind of spiraling of like how something can literally be woven in. And it also reminded me, the other thing I'll say is, this past quarter I read 10 Print, which is like an analysis of one line of syntax or code from like basic programming. And there was like this whole debate around, well, why would a book be dedicated to one line of code? But the argument is there is a cultural ramification to how you then use syntax and how you program. And so your presentation totally reminded me of that. Yeah.
It's a wonderful comment.
So I have 3 responses. First is the observation that that in a sense, Plaid is a kind of superficial effect of the technology evolution. So it's difficult to speak about Plaid as separate from the mechanics technology, and the possibility of an isosceles Plaid will depend on a weaving with a completely different geometry. Secondly, clearly, the question of the politics of the right angle, obviously, it's absolutely ingrained into our computational technologies, pixelation, and fundamentally the Cartesian coordinate geometry. So it's, in a sense, we go back to the foundations of rationalism. And the third thing that occurred to me, well, it's the first thing that occurred to me, but it comes third, is that coming from outside of the United States, I'd never really heard the term Plaid before until I came here, and in the Anglo world it's called Tartan, which is identified with a particular ethnic group, which is certainly not right-wing. With respect to the history of the British Empire and
well, it depends where it's exercised.
Yes, that's right. Anyway, those are my three comments. Thanks very much.
Yeah, well, thanks. I mean, I was very much cognizant of the fact that I'm not the only person trying to defend this thesis or say how we would go about researching it. I decided it was purely geometrical. But I think, that's why I'm suggesting an Euclidean geometry, because really when you mess with the right angle, you're not even in the same world in terms of surfaces and flatness and all kinds of other things open up.
The thing that I'm constantly reminded of is that we live in a regular geometry. I mean, we're in one right now. We're naturalized to that Cartesian coordinate geometry. I've thought about, what would it be really like to live in a triangular architectural spaces where we're vertical, even where floors are not horizontal. We live in a grid. We live in a Plaid that disciplines us.
I mean, it's interesting to say that. I mean, Trần Minh Ha obviously did that work quite early in the career on living with ground, which is looking at cylindrical thatched roof mud huts in West Africa, but all the way to southern as a production of a different kind of living than Plaid, Tartan, geolinear.
Well, I was going to say also, walking my dog, I'm always aware of how we're so focused on geometry, but really some of the key questions are topological. I go one way around the pole, she goes the other way around. We don't seem to be on the same page about it.
It's called otherwise known as a struggle.
Yes, the
A Gambit has this really incredible story about the spider and the fly. And he says that the spider and the fly operate in, essentially doesn't use this word, but he says essentially operate in different ontologies. And yet, they are not aware of each other's ontologies in any sense whatsoever, I mean, outside of the conceptions of what exists. But there's this moment where they converge and they become aware of each other, which is the moment when the fly hits the web and vibrates this sort of distributed awareness of the spider, and all of a sudden their two worlds collide. And they collide in such a way that they are still not aware of each other's worlds, but for this brief moment they are translated to each other. And it obviously ends with fly, but presumably that's happening. Presumably that's happening all the time, right? These colliding ontological translations that share no similarities, but at particular moments translate or are transductive of each other.
I mean, I would like to look at the opposite side of that same example and ask after the ways in which, even though we think that those are completely disjoint worlds, but they're always already entangled in particular kinds of ways that seem to me go to the topological question of really spelling all that out.
Yeah.
You know, rather than just, you know, because there's a particular conservative agenda that can also go along with, you know, the complete disjointness of cultures and culture clashes.
Simon's comment reminded me, I was going to ask about gravity and how, hypothetically, how in quantum physics think about some question with gravity and the planet. So if gravity is that which gives us these right angles, what about other conditions of gravity or something that you explore with? And then Eli's question about the spider boat made me think of what would be a multi-species approach to asking the Plaid question with the spider, which is always doing moving and producing space out of its body with the silk student doing its own sort of maybe textures. I think of how the spider's been, this one spider lately has been building webs all over my car between the side mirror and the window, and it's not planar.
And the multi-species question would bring me to spider boats, and using, taking the gene that the golden orb spider uses to secrete the silk and putting it in the mammary glands of goats, so that you could get a lot of what they now call biosteel, which has military and also high fashion. People have the interest in the kinds of materials that are built with that, and they're definitely also not the usual geometries at all. It's all of this is squirted out in milk, all of these ligaments or whatever. But the geometrical question also with respect to gravity is really, really interesting, because what I can think of is not only Newton's theory of gravity, but Einstein's theory of general relativity, which itself says that gravity is a warping of space-time. So I think of that example, which probably people have seen a lot of this picture, where you take space-time to be a cloth, like a rubber sheet with right-angled lines, and then you stick a heavy bowling ball or something in the middle, which would be like symbolically the sun or something, to show the warping of space-time, and if it's a black hole, it goes through the sheet, and then, it breaks that continuum. But yeah, that would take us out of, there the shortest distance between 2 points is not a straight line. It's a line along whatever geodesic the geometry is giving us. So that would take us into a totally new realm of class.
Space class.
Space time class.
You've got a whole new vocabulary for Flannel.
Yeah, so we, just a couple of thoughts. We do live in a rectilinear space, but we think in hyperbolic space, right? There's like no boundary to it, right? I like the hyperbolic space that there's no finite radius. Like if you draw a normal circle, there's a finite radius from the center out, right? But the hyperbolic gets weird again, right? So if you were to play baseball in a hyperbolic space, you'd never see the ball. There's like 10 to 99 people in the back, right, trying to catch the thing. But yeah, but I was fascinated by the shape, right? So the shape which is totally topological. So I was wondering, is the shape dynamical? Remember I was trying to explain to you like a dynamical graph on Facebook works and stuff like that, right? So how does it handle infinity? Like, could you push that out? And also the notion of gravity in quantum is very strange, because nobody knows how to define movement, and you can't even see, so like the observation of quantum. What is an area of triangle? There's no triangle. You know what I mean? Like quantum is so different. So like they work in emergent physics, right? So I think if we could model our thought based on emergent, not linear, I think your shape does that.
Yeah, I'm just going to
Oh, yeah.
yeah, because this is meant to be not just a static blob, but something that's very dynamic. The word emergence is a little difficult because emergence already assumes a givenness to time. It's something that kind of unfolds or emerges in time. And part of what's being emerging here is time itself, right? Space-time mattering. So I think that, in order to, it would be terrific to actually try to build one of these in a way that you could actually play with it so that it could move, how the connections
What do the
were.
movements represent?
What's that?
What do they represent?
Changing the relationships of how things are produced, or being co-produced, co-constituted with one another. And yeah, and some of them are more important, and some of them fade into the background, and some of them have historical lingering effects, but also, there's a weird way in which time is keeping things open so that the past isn't closed. And the question of infinity comes up a lot on field theory, right, where we get these infinities that are charged by very physicists like Richard Feynman as being, the ultimate kind of queerness because it's a self-touching, which he says is immoral. This is the person who makes the atom bomb. Who never ever uses that word again other than this context of the electron touching itself. As far as I know, I haven't been able to find it. But so this electron touching itself produces an infinity that then has to be, of course, renormalized in order to make it be, right? You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
In order to make it be finite so that it's well behaved, so that, but that's only the consequence of doing this renormalization is to make the topology and the strange structure of the electron itself to include anything that is its constitutive other is actually always already inside, so it has alterity built inside of it, which is a wonderful thing that happens when you try to renormalize it.
GI?
That's what happens. A little bit about infinity. Yeah.
I was looking at that in terms of purely from a design compositional perspective, how it relates to politics of the right, so the fact that it has nodes, very structured node that repeats itself and amplifies, right? And so the fact that this entire room is wallpapered in Flannel. And never to know where Plaid again. How it amplifies itself from a structural standpoint.
Nice.
And I was also thinking about in terms of this is a very serious thing, I don't know if it exists. It seems like this in quantum mechanics where you can have, I guess, two electrons existing in two different spaces simultaneously. And almost like this is also this mirroring effect that happened in this structure.
Yeah, it's the hidden diffraction pattern. Go back to the Plaid. Well, that's not a very good example. It's too much visible light up there. But yeah, there, you could see these different things, these different nodes of the diffraction. Oh yeah, my shirt is better. This will come in handy. Yeah, so there's, this is like one of these places in the diffraction pattern where there's reinforcement of light, or light in this fabric. And then there are other places where there's reinforcement of black. Yeah, and so this is, in a way, a kind of diffraction pattern, but with a certain odd regularity to it that we have to sit down together and work out the mathematical state of the wave function, which would produce this kind of specific diffraction pattern.
Thank you. We're going to keep the persistence and we'll come back to kind of more open discussion. Thanks, Barad.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do this live. We're just going to go on an internet journey together. Okay, great. Can I put this down so I can type? Directly in? Yeah. All right. through so here we go. So I thought we would just go on a nice internet stroll researching the thesis. The flannel pattern contains a coding that promotes the American conservative agenda. And I also thought to wear plaid. This is what I wore, because I do not have any.
Seventies like in London.
Google images. So I thought I would tell you a little bit more. Right, let's just do that. We don't need to do that. So I think that every family oftentimes has a kind of fabric that is associated with them. Does the enter key of this computer work?
At least you can press the search, you can press the magnifying glass.
There we go.
Oh. But is that how long it takes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the internet here is okay. It's really going to take.
It's taking that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if this plan works, and if it doesn't, we'll kind of redo things. So my family garment is the Moroccan henna robe, like this. So this is the garment that my grandfather made as a tailor in Morocco. My family were Moroccan Jews that moved to Morocco in the 1400s after the Spanish Inquisition. And so my grandfather would go around and make these robes that are robes of desert people. Right, Morocco is part of a very arid climate, so you need to wear things that are good for arid climates, like long robes like that. And thank you very much. And so the story is that also the buttons that were on these robes would be chickpeas, actually, that were embossed with gold thread. So my father would go with my grandfather and would collect these chickpeas that he would distribute to all of the women in the village, and they would, during the course of their daily activities, they would take these chickpeas and they would wrap them by hand with gold thread, and then my grandfather would collect them and sew them onto the robes, which would then be in his store. So this is the garment of my family, and it's perhaps why I do not have any plaid myself. Okay, the other kind of garment that's in my family right now is the Macquarie tartan, because my partner is a Macquarie, and this is his clan tartan. He is a Scottish of the clan Macquarie, so he has a tartan for his clan. So I think someone else might be getting there, but in all clans in Scotland, there was a tartan you wore, which is of course what we call plaid. And they were worn into battle. And for about 40 years, they were banned, right? This was the Dress Act of 1746 that attempted to bring the warrior clans under government control by banning the tartan and other aspects of Gaelic culture. And there were, I sort of understood this as the thing that you wore to battle, as the thing that would separate you from the other team, right? You're in battle, how do you know which guy's on your team? Oh, that clan, that's my tartan, that's not my tartan. Sort of like the jerseys of the Knicks, right? Like, versus the other team, don't pass the ball to that guy. But in fact, that's not how they were used. Instead, you wore a ribbon on your bonnet, and the color of the ribbon is what differentiated people on different sides of a fight. And so actually, clan tartans were generally regarded as an invented tradition in the 19th century. And before that,
you just kind of wore whatever tartan was of your general region and of your general color preference, and they were sort of linked with the military. So, you know, I don't have this kind of linking of Anglo-Saxon culture, so I think that Plaid is linked with this Anglo-Saxon culture, so questions I have are, what is the relationship between Plaid and whiteness, right? This is very different than this of my ancestry. What is the relationship between Plaid and class? So my extra fact is that historically flannel was made through an economizing process of mixing together multiple sources of wool. That's what made the flannel pattern. So it was to make things more economical, right? And at what point did this happen? Okay, you all know what it's slowly going for, right? At what point did this happen? Was this slowly going to happen? The lumberjack culture.
Oh, please put on the Plaid suit.
Yeah. Also, my question is, do politicians go around wearing plaid? Right? So here we see, of course, some key examples cycling through, but let me show you also some examples that were not conservative ones. I don't know if you can tell, but in this picture we have the Bushes and the Clintons, but it is Hillary over there on the left donning the plaid, if you can't make that out. I also was beginning to wonder, like, you know, if we go to Target, like, what are they selling that's plaid? Does it look like it's marketed towards people that are quote-unquote conservative? I also, you know, are we supposed to be researching from this point of view, from the marketing point of view? Do we want to buy this? Why or why not? If we're to put on our quote-unquote management consultant brains, should we be asking this question? Who is buying plaid? Where are they located? Could we really say that plaid contains a quote-unquote coating? And of course, Karen already brought this up, but I think that when we're here in San Francisco, we see a lot more of this. Queers wearing plaid, right? This is the kind of type of plaid wearing that we see, or we see this kind of plaid wearing. Hipsters wearing plaid. And another thing that I found really interesting was that our state of California here has its own tartan. Did you guys know that? Yeah, so state tartans.
Oh my
Arkansas has two. They have a traveler one and a natural state one. And ours is pretty subdued compared to...
How many squares are in California? I mean, in senses, what kind of pattern is within? You see how there's multiple sort of crosshatches on Colorado, but I can't see.
So California has 3 different patterns. On this side right here, there's a red and green one. In the middle, there's dark green and purple. And on this side, there's a hatching of green, red, and yellow. Yeah, and it's really hard to make out. But I mean, look at some of the other ones. Like, Nevada's is really dandy. So that's one thing I wanted to draw your attention to. And then questions like, is plaid straight edge? Is it preppy? Has it been reclaimed? And I think that we would be remiss here if we didn't talk about things like punks wearing plaid, right? So if you look at classic examples of punks like the Chaos Days in 1984, some of the first images that come up are punks who are facing the police wearing plaid. And so this was a moment of punks sort of saying, F you to the police, and in their face, they're choosing to wear plaid. And while that's loading, so this is the image I'm thinking of in terms of punks wearing plaid. And some other examples are Nirvana plaid. I don't know if you remember this moment of plaid culture, where Nirvana really brought out this grunge plaid movement, where the message of plaid here was basically nothing. The message was apathy. So, what do we call coding? And how would we look towards what a conservative coding might be? Is it really about class? Is it about being economical? And what would be a camouflage for the conservative movement agenda is a question that I have. So if we're going to look at, say, the Charlottesville March, what kind of clothing might make one blend in to look like a conservative, quote unquote, in that type of march? And when I look at that, when the images sort of pop up with our very slow internet connection, the kind of things that I see there are torches, KKK robes, Hail Hitler gestures, swastikas, Confederate battle flags, St. Andrew's flags, helmets, axes, and symbols like the battle rune, the blue dragon's eye, and the yellow lambda. And I don't think you need to really see these images again, but that's something that I see when I think about what kind of thing might be camouflage E1 into the right-wing agenda. And one other thing I think about these days and age as we talk about the sort of trade wars, with what would other countries tax us on to make Trump supporters hurt, right? There's all these taxing threats on Harley Davidson, on Kentucky bourbon. What would it be like if there was a threat to tax plaid? I also have a question. What if we have the proposition that plaid contains a coding that promotes the American conservative agenda, what kind of agenda would other patterns that are perhaps less rectilinear support, like polka dots? So these are just a lot of questions out there, but in terms of my theory, concerns, questions, and intent, it really draws out of images, asking about origins, asking what coding means, what symbols are, and what camouflage means. So I'll just leave it there.
Thank you. Provocation.
I just want to say I wondered why you didn't mention Berkeley, because that's an odd, Asian appropriation. It's a the popular culture of play. I have nothing to say about it. I just was waiting for it to come up.
Yeah. There's one amazing video that Bill Cunningham made about Plaid. Bill Cunningham is one of the famous, of course, street photographers for the New York Times. And he went out and he's known for doing these videos where he'll just photograph people wearing a specific thing. And he'll say, isn't it wonderful how the young people have taken this Burberry and they've redone it in all their own colors. And so that's what he did with Plaid and Burberry, and he showed how those kinds of patterns have been made into all of these sort of fantastic colors with people wearing them from outlets like Forever 21 or H&M who completely blow them apart. Like they take the black and white, they take the typical red and black, and they make them completely wild colors like yellow, hot pink, all those kinds of things.
When that happens, what is that?
What is that?
What does that do to your theory?
I think
It's not really planned. That was big in fashion.
why do you
I even bought one. I hate play. That seems to me it was kind of anti-play. It was planned for people who hated play.
Counterplay.
I have a question. I mean, it was very playful, but I was very struck by
the garments that you know about from your ancestral heritage in Morocco, and you asked the question about the relationship between Plaid and class.
Yeah.
And they seem to be very regal, the photographs that you showed. So I'm just kind of wondering that about taking the chickpeas and wrapping them, but then at the same time, the product seems to be very kind of regal, particularly kind of in that class. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that Plaid does, and that things like Carhartts, a lot of the kind of hipster clothing that is worn a lot these days is usually workers' clothing that's been reappropriated.
Like jeans.
Jeans, yeah, exactly, to be seen as hip now. And so the kind of garments that I showed you was, yeah, it's the fancy version of an everyday garment. And so you might have one piece in your life. Yeah, it's definitely not everyday clothing.
You would have them
for weddings, for the wedding of someone else. You wear it maybe once or twice a year. Yeah. Yeah. But I do think there's something to be said about, in terms of class, about like reappropriating workers' clothing in our day and age for hipster aesthetic, for queer aesthetic.
Hippie aesthetic.
Yeah. Or politicians to look more plebeian.
Overall.
May I just show something on yeah, because it's related to this, because I went to Catholic school, yeah, I know. I worked for freaking years.
That's good.
That I wanted to show, and even Stephen Vasquez Lopez. And how he does these drawings all in pen of fabric, of plaids. This is all in pen, and then he purposefully puts like he draws tears, what looks like tears. So he kind of does the whole thing that, I guess what's his name, like Wittgenstein's trying to do, like let me paint something that's machine mediated. And Lopez does something very similar, and he pulls from this idea of having been born and raised Catholic, went to Catholic school, his mom was a seamstress, but it kind of reminds me, it goes back to your question of then him exploring this identity through the simulation of creating fabric that looks like it was made, I'm repeating myself, made through a machine. And so I thought, it made me think of what you were, it kind of goes back to your story too, of your own family, and how like maybe the alternate to Plaid is like the Moroccan, or even Paisley or whatever, but thinking of these different alternatives to that structure, that group-like structure, and how someone can mimic like something, or what is it, like the tear that Lucas is doing, and he does it with all the work, with all his work. But anyway, I think it was just more of a comment that it reminded me of.
That's beautiful. And when you put this up, it even reminds me of how many Solowitz drawings.
Oh, yes.
As well.
Thinking about the question of class in Plaid too, I was also struck by it, and I remembered it as soon as you showed it, that Nirvana, like a grunge Plaid. And and then the images of it, because it was the Plaid shirt that you had, it was like grungy, or what do you call it, like kind of messy, and actually it's kind of like this, right? Like the tearing and the completely unstructured words, that are supposedly supposed to then make that Plaid, or remake that Plaid, or take away whatever coding or power you might think about it. But actually, then of course I thought about the grunge culture of the time, and discussions about North Holland itself, and the kind of class, and the kind of the protest of grunge, as also kind of always redescribing this kind of white subject, or like the loose subtopic. You know what I mean? So that was what. So when you said it symbolized nothing, I was thinking, well, it's like nothing, or it's actually kind of inappropriate in Plaid, showing Plaid's work
before I ended up.
But it seems like it's going back to the Buckminster Fuller spaceship Earth question, because he posits that spaceship Earth is not supposed to have any politics in it, and a place devoid of politics has every politic in the world, right? So by being about nothing, it's almost as if it's enforcing a politic.
Yes.
So.
That's a much better way of putting it.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we could think about the difference being in the Bay Area between tie-dye and plaid as different fabric forms. So in tie-dye, right, you want a white fabric, but the color of the threads doesn't match the orientation. Whereas here, the color and the direction or the warp or look of the thread go in the same direction and align, whereas tie-dye breaks the direction of the color. So I wonder about how dyeing, practices of dyeing might come into conversation with plaid, like whether dyeing of the thread happens before or after the making of the fabric, and is it significant that the fabric or the threads are dyed before they're made into plaid versus after they're already in fabric?
I think, when you say that, it reminds me not only of tie-dyeing, but also of screen printing.
Oh, yeah.
And all of the kind of screen print shirts that you study, and especially, I feel that there have been a resurgence of those with all kinds of protesters because your screen printing assigned my screen print shirts as well, right? And so all of those are sort of, I think, gestures towards action and small action, which can be done on its own, which oftentimes create a sort of sense of agency, whereas the orientation of the threads having to be aligned with them being pre-dyed already has described that sort of mechanization that has to be done in the commission process that sort of removes it from the self-community, the action. So I think those things go together in a way.
So I was thinking also about carrying this example of the crochet shoulders too. So those take pre-dyed threads but in a totally different direction rather than keeping them in the alignment.
So, talking of dyeing before or after, I think the most perverse textile practice that I know is ikat. Ikat, which is it's practiced in Southeast Asia and Indonesia, and also has been adopted in Central America somewhere. But basically, what you do is you lay out all the fibres, and you essentially make a painting in dye on the fibres, and then you weave them together. You've probably seen some of this stuff. And you give this kind of slightly sort of stretched off kilter images that often sort of indigenous images. IKAT, it's an insane practice. It's hard to understand why one would ever. I guess in certain crafting contexts.
It's humanization rather than mechanization.
No, actually, no, it way predates mechanisation. This is a hand-weaving process. I guess it's a way of getting complex patterns that are not reflected in sort of woven pattern. And I guess that's basically to get some sort of pictorial content, without embroidery or any of those other non-reflected in patterns. It's a very curious tradition.
Yeah, it's warping the convention.
Query. That's a query.
Lisa, thank you very much.
That you try to see materials here. Is it this one? So, so I love And I feel like I'm standing in front of somebody else's project because the only fabric I work on is Kevlar. It was developed by the chemist Stephanie Qualla, and I'm working on it because now Bustamante, the Los Angeles-based artist, has recently completed a work on women of the Mexican Revolution, and one of the aspects of her work was to recreate the dresses worn by the women who fought in the Mexican Revolution in Kevlar, which she then shot up to see how impenetrable they were. Anyway, I'm working on Stephanie Qualla and Kevlar. But, so yeah, I got the theory memo around Plaid, and I happened to decide that it's a good moment to do a cheap theory shift, which I happen to own, a cheap theory shift. And I don't know if any of you understand theory as a fashion label, and I'm wearing a dress made in China that was clearly inspired by Annie Alber's work. And Annie Alber's phrased my presentation because she was a Bauhaus designer who is known either for prints, or for textile prints, or tech work or weaving. And so I want to talk about the distinction between weaving and prints. But first, it was really with some anxiety that I read this charge because I want to talk about a child who was raised in the household of Italian immigrant laborers during the 1970s who spent her Saturdays sewing, doing piecework. That piecework was edge work, where in a room at home, the size of a closet, she performed the unskilled task of sewing the edges, doing the edge work, which was to keep the edges from unraveling for the skilled sewers who would do the piecework. And Plaid posed the greatest challenge to the sweatshop workers who took these secured edges on a weekday in the mafia-run sweatshop where the weekend illegal worker's grandmother worked, to match up the edges. So to do piecework, you need to be very skilled at matching edges. And Plaid is the sweatshop worker's worst nightmare. And so I'm going to quote from Samuel Weber, quoting Anna Glasova, quoting Walter Benjamin, and I'm having problems. Am I not in presenter view here, James? Oh, I need to be in presenter view. Sorry, I can't read my quote without the presenter view, so bear with me. Thank you. So how do I get to the bottom of this text? So, on also quoting Benjamin, only the expressionist completes the work. The expressionist completes the work by shattering it, by making it Stückwerk, piecework, fragments of the true world. And so I turn to the microtasking of doing edge work, unskilled material labor performed in repetition to stave off the unraveling at the border that would return the uniform to pieces. And here's a passage attributed to Einstein, but rarely interpreted. Once you can accept that the universe as matter expanding into nothing that is something, wearing stripes with plaid comes easy. And so here we see Einstein wearing plaid with stripes, the prison stripes at the bars behind him, and the Einstein in a composite array, a condensate form in somebody else's research. Okay, so turning in a different direction. To Cindy Sherman in Plaid entitled Woven Hair and Woven Garment, a color photographic print of 2000. More than ever, writes Friere Lawrence for Bone International issue number 21 in 2012, identity is malleable and fluid. So using Cindy Sherman to make this point, Cindy in Plaid. And here, Melania Trump in the White House garden, wearing a $1,362 Bavane panel flat, but I draw your attention to the gloves. And on the right, cozy flannel lesbian engagement at Montana de Oro, a Central California coast wedding site. So the photo on the right gestures toward a tradition carrying forward lesbians in plaid, which I'm happily participating in today. utilitarian approaches that embrace the lumberjack look, for example, in the 70s and 80s. But here, it becomes a style choice worn by both women, which you might not have seen in a certain period of lesbian feminism, and it's a style choice that Brooks Brothers capitalized on big time. Not to mention Ralph Lauren, so I'll talk about that in a bit. And here we have a New York couple photographed by Beachy, some kids from Mount Holyoke, which I thought was adorable, and Jeanette Louise Spires and her friends. They tried to get married in Florida in 1970, kind of echoing Karen's 1970 feminists, lesbian feminists in Plaid. Jeanette wanted to marry her girlfriend, but couldn't. And she said, I feel there should be a law for this. And the couple on the right also submitted papers to get married. And here we have Michelle Obama in her plaid. Notice that she is wearing not one plaid, but two. The discordant plaids. She has a red plaid skirt underneath the plaid top, and Queen Elizabeth in a woven wool tartan skirt that was trials in 73. But all of this goes back to the Luan beauty and the 200 mummies found in the late 20th century, uncovered in the Tarim Basin, a desert area in what is now part of the Uyghur Autonomous Region, Chinese Turkestan. And mitochondrial DNA analysis, that's my 7 minutes, or maybe 1 minute. Mitochondrial DNA analysis suggests that the bodies date from the 2nd millennium BC. They're believed to have been among the earliest settlers from Western Europe in the Tarim Basin. And here's the plaid that she wears. DNA studies suggest the bodies, like the Turkic Indo-European language spoken by this group, are in fact an admixture. So I'm interested in this idea of plaid as an admixture and this very deeply mixed origin of plaid as plaid edgework, and plaid as a way of thinking through geographic array. You can't read my titles because they're quite dark. But here is the Luan beauty with her plaid fabric and the plaid, the red hair is in fact oxidized hair. She's blonde. A photo taken in 2011 around the time that her DNA analysis was done. Tartan, so-called tartan headscarf from before the Viking Age. Though typically printed on flannel, plaid is in fact historically a woven material. And so I want to suggest that the ancestors of those whose bodies remained at the Uruk-Kintarim site, who went east to Hallstatt and the Austrian salt lines, they're understood to have been deeply admixed, going back millennia in Siberia. And so we can look at the Tarim River, strategic to China, but unknown weaves across the arid basin, and it sustains more than a third of Chinese cotton farm production, which is my awkward segue to Madras, guaranteed to bleed. So cotton plaid holds a different story, printing and weaving bleed into one another as structures and as methods for pursuing research into borders and the foundations of what constitutes an admixture. So I want to suggest that we look at things like, Jasper John's printing technique, screen printing, in relationship to the emergence of Madras, which actually has a deeper history than some of us might realize. Slave trader Elihu Yale, to my horror as a Yale, learning this tradition, was the governor of Fort St. George, the East India Company's installation at Madras. And in 1718, he made a gift to the university in the state of Connecticut that on the basis of that gift would name the university after him. And that gift included 5 bells of Madras fabric. So here is a store, a store in New Haven, advertising for, Yale clothes. In 1902, Brooks Brothers ran the first ad for Madras and the Yale record. And the fabric was made with highly toxic dyes that bled. Brooks Brothers forgot to include advertising saying, wash your shirt in cold water, and so the fabric's bled. What were they going to do with the 10,000 yards of fabric that they had left? They would insert the label that said, guaranteed to bleed, making bleeding Madras a commodity. So bleeding was a kind of colonial edgework, an unraveling both between colors and between threads, but also an unraveling of the difference between a weave and a print, making the admix a badge of colonial stature and global experience. As the color of the neighboring thread, the thread from over the border contaminates a new territory, the difference that previously constituted each color in the weave recedes under the spreading state of the bleed. The bleed signifies the successful conquest and the edgework of global travel. So we have Plaid piecework as a kind of geographical array. Just a quick rip through the resuscitation of interest in Madras in the 2010s. The dyes were outlawed, but new dyes were introduced, and so we have the introduction of a new kind of microtasking, making new Madras, in this case out of old stock, but here making new stock. These are contemporary photographs of the new interest in bleeding Madras. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
It's like that nightmare you have where you forget to do your paper on time and you realize, oh, and like you never even did the research. Like, I don't research this. Whatever's wrong is wrong.
Yeah, the colonial history.
That's amazing.
Yeah. To silence.
I mean, I was just going to comment, I actually
Yeah.
like the colonial history that are so embedded in your presentation. It's very, very, very good.
What stunned me was the early ancient history, because I don't know if I made that point clear enough. The admixture of the people in the Tarim Basin, for decades they were referred to as Western Europeans who walked there in the creation of the Silk Road. But the DNA analysis in 2011 showed that they were actually an admixture of East Asian and West European when they got there and had been for millennia. So the deep roots of mixing that was the genetic organization of these people was really something that just...
I mean, it does point to the fact that we're thinking about racial histories, that the naturalized presumption of homogeneity vis-a-vis ethno-raciality is both a make-believe on the one hand, and is only sustainable by the ideology of repression, and the other of repression, both psychic and aggressive, forceful. People have always done this. And the sort of joke I make is if you got two small villages, you know, a couple of kilometers apart, and you tell your kids, don't go and play with those kids over there, the first thing they're going to do is go and play with those kids over there, right? And mixtures are really sort of in process. So, you know, it requires a kind of verification to think that homogeneity, kinship homogeneity, sort of produces a kind of ethno-raciality. The historical record is just and you know what you're pointing to, like the cultural effects of it.
The really deep history.
I heard about Indira Liberal's work, the Bay Area-based artist who did a piece in 2015. She did this in a digital weaving project, but she studied police uniform, like the textiles that are used in police uniforms and how they are like typist made so that they can absorb, or not even absorb, they can, you can quickly wash blood out of police uniforms. So in my mind, what I was thinking about it also, everyone who's presented thus far is this kind of violence that we forget that's incorporated into kind of certain types of clothing, but also Plaid is, it kind of gives you that illusion of what is it, like something sturdy. And so it kind of reminded me, like just the things you talk about in the colonial kind of history of the Madras is very much to that effect, where it's okay for it to bleed, it's acceptable because it's worn in a certain setting versus in, you know, you would wear it to something, you know,
fancy or formal. Yeah.
So it kind of reminded me, and then she based off her project of Blackout on that structure of police uniforms, but her digital readings were of all the media, like news clips of clippings of police violence against black and brown bodies. So it's like just interesting contrast. Thank you.
To pick up on the lead question, so I really appreciate your deep historical look at some of the older fabrics, and that almost made me not want to ask this question, but I couldn't help but look at the frayed edges and think about the endurance of some of these fabrics. And what you did with the historical context is sort of disarticulate Plaid from the American conservative agenda alone by looking at the different ways it's been taken out. But the disintegration question, though, made me wonder, or how is fabric endure over time? That made me wonder, what would count as moths that eat the fabric of the American conservative agenda? What could act as a kind of unweaving or a consumptive force?
I'm immediately imagining a biowork lab, or not biowork, but a lab that would breed these moths. Yes.
Where these fabrics lie.
Yeah, I just have a list of closets in my head already. Yeah, well, we have in our program, we have a colleague who's working on these, so we'll have to suggest the moths.
You have to make a mothball.
Or fabric that just integrates on the body and it's sold only to right-wing people.
Who are the sheep that this wool comes from, too? Or where are the sheep that the wool comes from to make the Plaid of the American conservative agenda?
Yeah.
Especially because there are a few sheep in the United States. It's not a very sheepy place.
No, in Scotland, that used to be.
Lots of sheep in Australia.
Yeah, California actually, it does. There's a project called Fiber Shed that is actually taking on some of these questions specifically that's in the North Bay.
I mean, the history of colonialism is a history of importation of wool from colonies to...
Yeah, that's right. In fact, growing up as an Australian, you heard the motto of Australia was at home on the sheep's back. You see little logos like that, you can live with.
Yeah, sheep are a big part of the story because those early settlers in the Tarim Basin came from the Kazakh steppes and the Russian steppe. So this is sheep territory.
Isn't it interesting that Americans eat mostly beef but not mutton, and yet a lot of them, then Plaid comes from sheep, so we're consuming the wool but not the meat.
But I wonder what the Plaid that we're really consuming is. Is it sheep? Is it cotton? Is it synthetic? Is it just the printed on that you're talking about rather than the woven cotton?
Well, I think around the table, so I think we were looking at Gabi's shirt earlier, and it's actually, it's part of the neo-madras read, and yours is an old woven one? It's an old woven madras.
Maybe like your name.